Let's make some announcements. Don't forget, I just have that bagels a lot. That was actually not going to be bagels. It's breakfast with Steve to make a reservation. So this Monday, you need to have the reservation. If you'd like to join us this Monday and Wednesday, we have the NATEP birthday club for the month of you need a reservation for that as well. We have a whole bunch of events that we're working on at the same time. As soon as we finalize them, which one is going to be, looks like it's like a good chance it'll happen. We're going to have a day starting off with a brunch, a shiur, a bus to Yankee Stadium and a Yankee game. I'll let everybody know about that. That's going to be sometime. Yeah. Well, you know, when we went one time, I think it was the Yankee Dodger game. We went to that game. It was so crowded there. You had to wait outside. I think about an hour before the bus could make it back to the stadium.
So we took care of it for you. We arranged not a Dodgers game. We arranged it just for that reason.
Yeah, well, it's a good idea. Okay, so that's some upcoming events, and there's some other things that I'm working on also. So I'll let you know as we finalize them. Okay. So you're set. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hebrew poetry is not an area that too many people spend too much time studying. Probably because most of the Hebrew poetry originated during the period in Spain when there was like a renaissance of literature and philosophy and poetry, and a lot of Spanish poets, Jewish Spanish poets, wrote poetry, religious and secular. And in Ashkenaz, maybe in Italy, the only poetry you had was religious poetry. And religious poetry took the form of piyutim to commemorate tragedies that occurred to the Jewish people. And unfortunately, there was no shortage of tragedies, both in terms of the Beis HaMikdash, in terms of the various fast days that we have, and also, unfortunately, because of many, many persecutions that took place, especially in Ashkenaz. You had the Rheinfleisch massacres in 1298. You had the Crusades starting in 1096. You had various persecutions in different countries. And up until recently, there were fast days that were decreed for certain commemorations. There was a whole series of them, but today the only fast days that we really commemorate are primarily because of the Churban and Beis HaMikdash, Shavasa B'Tammuz, Tisha B'Av, and the other fast days, Tanis Esther, all those that are mentioned in the Navi. The nature of religious poetry is an area that unfortunately has not been studied. You can study piyutim the same way you study a Blat Gemara. Unfortunately, most people don't have the skills or the knowledge linguistically to understand the piyutim. And one of the greatest tragedies is the way piyutim are recited in most shuls. They just go, they go run through it. And it's not something you can explain in shul. This is something that has to be studied. And most people don't do that. There was a wonderful collection by this fellow named Davidson called Otzer Hashiur v'Hapiyut b'Yisrael. He collected all types of religious and secular poetry written by Jewish authors over the years. And it's a massive, massive collection of tens of thousands of poems written by Jewish poets, mostly rabbinical scholars, throughout the ages. Mostly, as I said, in Spain, but some from Ashkenaz as well. Question for us: the booklets that we recite piyutim from on the various fast days and on Tisha B'Av. How did we select these over the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of poems that were written? And if you look at our Piyutim booklets, and by the way, they were always printed on these little flimsy paper booklets because Mashiach's going to come, and you won't need to put it in a hardbound copy. That existed for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years until 1967. A British rabbi named Rosenfeld put out the first annotated keynotes with historical notes or footnotes, followed by Art Scroll, and then more recently by the OU with the Paper of Soloveitchik. It's something that is worth studying today, or even on Tisha B'Av itself, because you can learn the Piyutim, as I said, the same way you learn the Blat Gemara, because most people don't have the textual facility to understand every reference. Every word is a reference to a Medrash or to a Gemara, and it's woven together in a brilliant, brilliant fashion to commemorate a certain event, whether it was the burning of the Talmud in France that Maharam Rutenberg wrote about, or it was various expulsions from different countries, or pogroms in France or in Germany. You find it all. It's a history book. Now, which piyutim to include, and when did this become fixed? Sometime in the Middle Ages, the Rishonim, which is the post-Gaonic, you're looking primarily between the years 1200 and 1400, somewhere in that area, that 200-year period. The rabbis, who were the leading authorities of their generation, got together and they formulated a series of keynotes to be recited on Tisha B'Av as well as other fast days. Primarily, I'll focus on Tisha B'Av today. It varied from country to country because they each, unfortunately, had their own persecutions to memorialize, but they ultimately settled on a group of piyutim that, in Ashkenazi communities anyway, that are recited today in our shuls, whether it's in a little paper booklets or in a hardbound copy. I will say that the Sephardic piyutim are very different than our keynotes. As a matter of fact, during the month of Elul, they say piyutim every single day of the month of Elul. We just say it from a week before Rosh Hashanah, but they do it every single day. So there's plenty to choose from. Our piyutim were chosen by the Rishonim. Who they were, when they did this exactly is not clear. Most of the piyutim that we recite, the vast majority of piyutim, with certain exceptions, were written by somebody named Rabbi Elazar HaKalir. And you'll look very often in the annotated slichos, it'll say, or kinos, Elazar HaKalir. He was the author. Brilliant, brilliant scholar, because every word, every line makes a reference to a medrash or to a Gemara, and it's done in very intricate language with acrostics and it's unbelievably brilliant. There are other piyutim in kinos included. For example, Shali Srufa Be'esh is a very, very famous piyut written by the Maharam Rutenberg in the 13th century after they burned cartloads of the Talmud and other rabbinic writings in Paris. That's a major calamity. Yehuda Halevi has about 5 piyutim towards kinos towards the end. The most famous one is Tzion Halo Tishali, and there are other 4 beginning with the words Tzion. But Elazar Kalir is the major author of our kinos and our slichos prayers. Who was he? Short answer is, we're not sure. We don't know who this fellow was, brilliant though he might be. And I want to go to some of the different points of view. The Midrash Vayikra Rabbah, mentions the fact that there was a certain Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon who was known as a great darshan and a paitan. He wrote many poems and piyutim and kinos, and Elazar ben Shimon. we don't know if Elazar ben Reb Shimon is or Elazar HaKalir. It's not exactly the same. Tosfos brings a few proofs, Tosfos in Gemara, that Elazar HaKalir was this Elazar ben Reb Shimon. Shimon being Shimon bar Yochai, or was the son of the famous Tana Shimon bar Yochai, student of Rabbi Akiva. Other Rishonim are not so sure, but they know that he must have lived in Eretz Yisrael. This Rabbi Elazar HaKalir must have lived in Eretz Yisrael, and he signs his name in one place, Ani Elazar Beribi Kaliri Mikiryat Sefer. He came from the town of Kiryat Sefer. That's one proof that's brought by some people. Tosfos seems to think he was a Tana, lived in the time of the Mishnah, because he advocates certain positions that were contrary to the Talmud Bavli. The Rosh also supports this. Many Rishonim try to identify who he was. The Rashba, for example, says that Elazar HaKalir was Elazar ben Arach. Talks about and bases it on certain midrashim that he quotes. There are others. That in one of the keynotes on Tisha B'Av, he talks about 900 years ago when the temple was destroyed. Sana Kehusha Milishama, which means he lived 900 years after the Churban, in an attempt to make him in the time of the Tosfos. However, that might not have been correct, and there are others that try to find out, based on references in the Piyutim, where he came from. Most of the opinions are that he lived in Eretz Yisrael, because none of his Piyutim or Kinos, Piyutim anyway, for the second day of Yontif. There are none for the second day of Yontif, which implies that he might have lived in Eretz Yisrael at the time when they were sanctifying the moon with witnesses. Now that procedure lasted for quite a while. But he lived in Eretz Yisrael in all probability. And the only time that Rosh Hashanah the second day was not observed was when they still observed, through witnesses. And that had to have been during the time, shortly after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed for a short period of time. But even then, it's not quite clear. Others hold the 900 years refers to something else. Maybe he was he was not a Tana. Maybe he was an Amora. We're not really again. He doesn't give us much to go on. Elazar HaKalir, yeah.
Kaliri is not used by any other Tana or Amora that I'm aware of. It sounds more Arabic.
Okay, so good. So you're machavein to a shita of the Aruch, Sefer Aruch, Nosson Miromi wrote the first Talmudic dictionary, and he lived in the 11th, 12th century. He says that Elazar HaKalir ate a certain cookie that had a kameya, a Kabbalistic inscription on it, and that was a secret to all of his great knowledge. But a cookie was called a kalir, and therefore he was called HaKalir. That's from Nosson HaAruch, his shita. Tosfos Yontif says he was Elazar B'Reb Shimon. The way earlier Tanoim, Bali Tosfos agreed with him, and he wouldn't have signed his name Beribi Kalir. Maybe it refers to his grandfather. Again, different shitos throughout Rishonim and Achronim. The Ibn Ezra, interestingly enough, who was a grammarian himself, argues with Elazar HaKalir because his piyutim are very hard to understand. This is Ibn Ezra's argument. A lot of them are written in riddles, written in a Talmudic language that is very difficult to understand. Sometimes they don't follow the rules of grammar to make a point. And a lot of the piyutim are based on midrashim, And when you're davening and you're saying prayers, it shouldn't be midrashim. It should be more pshat. Easily, if you're saying prayers, it should be understandable. And he wrote in such an arcane way that was very hard unless you're really a scholar. And as I said, the way piyutim are done, we rush through these piyutim. Even if we skip certain, then we explain. These have to be read slowly, and unfortunately, most people have no clue what they're saying. Yeah.
That's the Ibn Ezra criticizing or giving that opinion about Rabbi Yosef HaKalir is our linguistic parallel to the pot calling the kettle black.
Of course. Okay, yes, but the point is, pshat and psukim are not the same as understanding piyutim or kinos, because when you study chumash, you go at a slower pace. But when you're reading piyutim and shul, you're flying through them, and you don't have a chance to really understand what the heck you're saying. Rav Amram Gaon, in his Seder Rav Amram Gaon, understands that there are two different styles of piyutim. He prefers that the ones that are based on psukim, which are a little bit easier to understand. Sfardim generally follow the Ibn Ezra in their piyutim, whereas Ashkenazim follow the more elaborate system of Elazar HaKalir. Sephardi piyutim are based on psukim, and Ashkenazic piyutim are the ones that are more difficult to understand because they make references to Gemaras and Midrashim, and unless you are a scholar of all the Midrashim and all the Gemaras, it's very hard to understand his piyutim. We also learn halachos, by the way, from the piyutim and kinos of Elazar HaKalir. Tosfos brings certain proofs regarding the length of a ritzua, tefillin strap, based on piyutim, measurements, the zeres, the Orzo Ruah learns halachos about Chanukah from his piyutim. And let me just read a little bit from Rav Soloveitchik about HaKalir, because I think it's very instructive. Because everybody quotes him, but we still don't know exactly who he was. We don't know when he lived. We think he was a Tana. He could have been a Rishon. We don't really know. He says the Chachmei Yisrael chose the keynote of Kalir for the very important purpose of commemorating Churban Yerushalayim, because they trusted that he would not change any halakhic practices and that his keynotes would be exactly in accordance with their traditions. They trusted him, and he wrote his keynote under their supervision. There were many Paitanim, as I mentioned, but Chazal or the Rishonim did not have much confidence in them, the Rav writes. They were very careful not to entrust them with the great task of formulating the keynote HaChurban for Klal Yisrael. I should add parenthetically, if you're using the expression keynote l'Churban for Klal Yisrael, that might be an opening to include keynotes for the Shoah, which many shuls do include. Rabbi Elazar HaKalir's piyutim are compilations of statements found in Chazal. There's hardly a sentence of Rabbi Elazar HaKalir that does not reflect halachot or agadot of Chazal. He had full access to all their teachings, although sometimes we do not know how to understand what he writes. This is Soloveitchik saying we don't understand what he writes. For example, his piyut on Yom Tov explains the essence of the day. The Midrashim on Sukkos are full of information about the Sukkah, Esrog, and Lulav, and all the explanation in the Midrash are found in Kalir's piyutim for the first day of Sukkot. His piyut for Sukkot explains the reason for many of the laws of Sukkah. He also explains the Dalad Minim, their laws, and many of the Midrashim relevant to them. His piyut on Rosh Hashanah includes all the agadot about the fact that Sarah, Roch, and Lechana conceived on that day. If we were to thoroughly study the piyutim of Elazar HaKalir for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and Pesach, we would find many halachot and many midrashim, including many now unknown to us. Which is true. Many great svarim over the years disappeared because either they were burnt or we don't have access to them anymore. His piyutim are very, very significant because if we understand a fraction of what he's saying, or even if we don't, but the basis for his keynotes are Chazal, Midrashim, Gemaras, meant to, I guess, generate a certain feeling of remorse. How do you mourn for something you never experienced? What he's doing is trying to create that experience for us to try to understand what it is that we no longer have. I'm reminded of a very important story about Napoleon. Very famous story that he was walking through the streets of Paris one day, and it had to have been Tisha B'Av. And he passes by a shul, and the sounds of mourning and crying are emanating from the shul. And he asked, "What's going on here? What are these Jews doing?" And he said, "They're mourning for the destruction of their temple 2,000 years ago." And Napoleon observed, if this nation could still remember the their temple that was destroyed, then they're never going to disappear. They'll be around forever. Because the power of memory is so strong. And this is what Elazar Kalir is trying to generate. And this is why the Rishonim shows his piyutim. Now, the Rishonim may have understood all the references that he was making to Midrashim, to Gemaras, things representing the Beit HaMikdash, and why it was and how it functioned before it was destroyed. We have an assignment. Read fewer piyutim, read fewer kinos, but understand the ones that you are saying. And to do that, you need to have kinos with commentaries to be studied either before Tisha B'Av or in the afternoon of Tisha B'Av, at some point, to understand what it is that we're saying. Piyutim, Jewish religious poetry, has never made it into the classroom. It's a shame. In Halavai, people should learn Chumash Gemara. That would be good enough, if they could do that. But in addition to learning Chumash and Mefarshim and as much Gemara as you can learn, the religious poetry, the piyutim, the kinos that we recite on fast days, it shouldn't just be, there's a horrible expression in Yiddish, to daven it up. You shouldn't daven it up. Every word that Kalir writes is based on piles and piles of Gemaras and Midrashim to try to get us into the mood to understand what it is that we lost. It's very hard to mourn for something you never experienced, and that's what he's trying to create.
I want to give credit to Dr. Mitchell Earlian and Dr. Usher Z of the 70s and 80s, who drew songs and poems from Hebrew and Jewish literature in their curriculum.
Yeah, Mitchell Orlean and Dr. Ziv, I remember them both. His son lives in Teaneck, good friend.
It's also that he also does.
Yeah. Okay. Again, hopefully this will be our last Tisha B'Av. But whether it is or it isn't, when you read the keynotes tomorrow morning, and some of those are going to say tonight, bear in mind that it's the Masorah of Elazar Kalir, whoever he was, whenever he lived, but he was a great, great poet and a great, great scholar. And he may have been a Tana, he may have been a Rishon. We have not, and it's unusual for a person whose writings are so widespread and so accepted and so respected that we know very little about his personal life and who he was. Very unusual. People that are that famous, you know something about them. But this is one of the vagaries of history, that we don't always know all the details of some of our most significant writers. Again, the field of Jewish liturgical poetry, piyutim and kinos, is an understudied area of Jewish literature. And today we have notes, we have kinos booklets with explanations, and I encourage you to read a little bit more about these piyutim. The bulk of them that we're going to say tomorrow were written by Rabbi Elazar Kalir, whoever he may have been. Yes, Milty. Okay, a kina is a mournful piyut. A piyut is a religious poetry. So the kinos are piyutim, but they're called kinos because they're like lamentations. They are kinos that to mourn for the destruction of the temple. So a kina is a lamentation type of piyut. They're all piyut. A piyut means a poem. It's a religious poem, but a kina is a religious poem that focuses on the Churban. Anything else? Okay, I would say one final thing in closing, that everybody wishes everybody else an easy fast. It should not be an easy fast. It should be a troubling fast. Why was the temple destroyed? What can we do to bring back the Beis Hamikdash and coming of Mashiach? And an easy fast, I think it's a misnomer.
A meaningful fast.
What's that?
Meaningful.
A meaningful fast, correct. Absolutely. That's a much better way of saying it. So have a meaningful fast. And this will be our last Tisha B'Av.
Right. Amen.
Thank you.
Have a
Wally,
great day.
Thank you.
Wally,
Yes, Howie.
I have a Mitchell Orlean story for you.
Go ahead.
When we were in school, you remember Ida Ginniger?
Yeah.
He went to kosher her kitchen for Pesach with a blowtorch. That was the end of the kitchen.
That's right. Unfortunately, that story has many ramifications for many people.
Yeah.
Okay, have a meaningful fast, Howie. Take care.
Dina, have I ever told you that I know your father since first grade, kindergarten?
Yeah, long time ago. All right, be well.
Take care.
Thank you, Wally. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi.
Yes.
What's our Shiur Piet Yisrael?
Yeah,
Is
Davidson.
Davidson. Anything in English from it?
No.
And it was one edition or it was redone?
One edition, I think. It's a major job. Multi-volume. I mean, there are so many poems that were written, and most of them never made it into our literature.
Maybe most of them were lost. You don't even know.
No, they exist, but it's not an area that people study it. It's just not. Yes, sir.
They say that Hashem took out his anger on the Hamikdash instead of on the people.
Okay.
So, in a sense, it should be a happy day that we're still around.
Okay. All right, that's one way of looking at it. Okay, I can thought of it that way. Good. Okay.
It's like every cloud has a silver lining.
Okay. Very good. So that's the silver lining. Very good. Go ahead.
Well, next week on Wednesday, we have the NATEP birthday club. So prior to your class,
Okay.
so we're going to have two people speaking from 3 to 5 minutes each. So we're actually going to start them like probably about 8:40.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah, I just want to give you a heads
That's
up.
not a problem. I'm still giving the regular Shiur though.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
fine.
right here.
Not a
Oh,
problem.
the other thing is they're going to be talking about Tu B'Av. So I'm just giving you a heads up because they might.
No,
Fill
I
in.
think I spoke about that once. Let them
Yeah.
talk about Tu B'Av. It's
Yeah,
fine.
they're going to talk about Tu B'Av.
That's fine. That is fine.
Yeah, so.
All right.